Yell at all the boys. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Jasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jasura Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Bonachari. Jamuna Tira Bonachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjano. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Bonachari. Jamuna Tira Bonachari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Sisi Radha Madhava ki jai, Sisi Radha Giridhari ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jai Shudra Shri Śrīmad, His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jai Shudra Shri Śrīmad, His Divine Grace. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Granthara Śrīmad-bhāgavatam ki jai. Samveda Bhaktivedanta ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, C.C. Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Budale Shmati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Paracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskachadi Shatarani. Nasa Luego, Yugul Kishore. Thank you so much. So this morning we're reading from the Śrīmad-bhāgavatam. Everyone likes a good fight?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we got a lot of fighting going on this morning. Probably had some fighting going on yesterday. This battlefield is described. Okay, we got text 9 through 25. In 25 there's a purport, small purport. So this is Canto A, Chapter 11. King Indra annihilates the demons. In fact, it gets so out of hand that Lord Brahma has to come and break it up. Break it up. You see the people are fighting, so it's break it up. Right? My mother used to have to do that. Brothers are fighting. Break it up. Break it up.
And you may have annihilated them, but then Chukwacharya bring all back.
Those who hadn't lost their heads, arms or legs, they just kind of like got shot. That's what it says. He couldn't, I can't, got to go find the head somewhere. So just, that was pretty good though, bringing them all back to life, but pretty exciting stuff. We'll talk about that. So this is text 9. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Na vayam manyamananam atmanan tatra sadhanam giro va sadhu sochanam krinimo marmatadanaha navayam manyamananam atmanam tatra sadhanam girova sadhu socyanam grinimo marmatadanaha navayam manyamananam atmanam tatra sadhanam girova sadhu socyanam grinimo marmatadanaha. Anyone like to chant? Navayam manyamananam atmanam tatra sadhanam girovat sadhu socyanam grinimo marmatadana. Anyone else? Navayam manyamananam atmanam tatra sadhanam girova sadhu socyanam grinimo marmatadana. Anyone else? Anyone would like to chant? Navayam manyamananam atmanam tatra sadhanam girova sadhu socyanam grinimo marmatadana. Anyone, anywhere? Online.
Navayam manyamananam
Navayam manyamananam
atmanam tatra sadhanam
atmanam tatra sadhananam
girova sadhu socyanam
girova sadhu socyanam
grinimo marmatadana
grinimo marmatadana. Na, not, bayam, we, manyamananam, who are considering Atmanam, the self, tatra, in victory or defeat, sadhanam, the cause, gira, the words, vaha, of you, sadhusochanam, who are to be pitied by the saintly persons. Gritnimaha, accept. Marma tadanaha, which afflict the heart. Translation: you demigods think that your own selves are the cause of your attaining fame and victory. Because of your ignorance, saintly persons feel sorry for you. Therefore, although your words afflict the heart, we do not accept them. It's Bali Maharaj speaking, right? He's in the battlefield. He and Indra paired off. So we'll just read the translations. Is that okay? Quite a few verses. Sukadeva Goswami said, after thus rebuking Indra, Dravida Prabhu, what specifically does rebuke mean? Because you can use different words like that, but it's a nuance.
It means to criticize heavily. That's pretty much what it means.
Put someone in their place?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just, it's interesting what words are used. Because you say chastising, and everybody actually rebuked him, so.
Chastising, usually you're trying to correct somebody, but he's not that.
Rebuke. Okay, Shukadeva Goswami said, after thus rebuking Indra, king of heaven, with sharp words, Bali Maharaj, who could subdue any other hero, drew back to his ear the arrows known as Narachas, and attacked Indra with these arrows. Then he again chastised Indra with strong words. Text 11. Since Bali Maharaj's rebukes were truthful, King Indra did not at all become sorry, just as an elephant beaten by its driver's rod does not become agitated. Text 12. When Indra, the defeater of enemies, released his infallible thunderbolt scepter at Bali Maharaj with a desire to kill him, Bali Maharaj indeed fell to the ground with his airplane like a mountain with its wings cut off. Has anyone ever seen any mountains with wings? Because they all got cut off. That's interesting. That's what I see. Purport. In many descriptions in Vedic literature, it is found that mountains also fly in the sky with wings. Wait a minute. When such mountains are dead, they fall to the ground where they stay as very large dead bodies. Does anyone want to leave now? Just kind of pushed you over the edge? Just asking. Okay, text 13. Translation: when the demon Jambhasura saw that his friend Bali had fallen, he appeared before Indra, the enemy, just to serve Bali Maharaj with friendly behavior. Text 14. The greatly powerful Jambhasura, carried by a lion, approached Indra and forcibly struck him on the shoulder with his club. He also struck Indra's elephant. Text 15. Being beaten by Jambhasura's club, Indra's elephant was confused and aggrieved. Thus he touched his knees to the ground and fell unconscious. Text 16. Thereafter, Matali, Indra's chariot driver, brought Indra's chariot, which was drawn by 1,000 horses. Indra then left his elephant and got into the chariot. 17. Appreciating Matali's service, Jambhasura, the best of the demons, smiled. Nonetheless, he struck Matali in the battle with a trident of blazing fire. Text 18. Although the pain was extremely severe, Matali tolerated it with great patience. Indra, however, became extremely angry at Jambhasura. He struck Jambhasura with his thunderbolt and thus severed his head from his body. 19. When Narada Rishi informed Jambhasura's friends, he's getting involved there. Narada Muni likes stirring things up. When Narada Muni informed Jambhasura's friends and relatives that Jambhasura had been killed, the three demons named Namuchi, Bala, and Paka arrived on the battlefield in great haste. Text 20. Rebuking Indra with harsh, cruel words that were piercing to the heart, these demons showered him with arrows just as torrents of rain wash a great mountain. Text 21. Quickly handling the situation on the battlefield, the demon Bala put all of Indra's 1,000 horses into tribulation by simultaneously piercing them all with an equal number of arrows. So how many arrows would that have to be? Well, there's 1,000 horses.
Yeah, but it'd be piercing with all with an equal number of arrows.
Right. Well, it could be one in each one. Either way, it's quite an amazing feat. Text 22. Paka, another demon, attacked both the chariot with all its paraphernalia and the chariot driver, Matali, by fitting 200 arrows to his bow and releasing them all simultaneously. This was indeed a wonderful act on the battlefield. Text 23. The demon Namuchi, another demon, attacked Indra and injured him with 15 very powerful golden feathered arrows, which roared like a cloud full of water. Text 24. Other demons covered Indra along with his chariot and chariot driver with incessant showers of arrows, just as clouds cover the sun in the rainy season. Text 25. Translation: the demigods, being severely oppressed by their enemies and being unable to see Indra on the battlefield, were very anxious. Having no captain or leader, they began lamenting like traders in a wrecked vessel in the midst of the ocean. Purport. From this statement, it appears that in the upper planetary system there is shipping, and that traders there engage in navigation as their occupational duty. Sometimes on this planet these traders are shipwrecked in the middle of the ocean. It appears that even in the upper planetary system, such calamities occasionally take place. The upper planetary system in the creation of the Lord is certainly not vacant or devoid of all living entities. From Śrīmad-bhāgavatam, we understand that every planet is full of living entities, just as Earth is. There is no reason to accept that there is no reason to accept that on other planetary systems there are no living beings. Om Agyantimirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshulinminitam Nenataismai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Siguru Syudaparakamalam Sigurun Vaishnavam Sirupam Sagrajatam Sahaganath Raganatam Bidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shivashakam Bitam Shcha Vanchakapatarubhascha Kripashindu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay. Who's read the whole Mahabharata? Well, I mean, the Mahabharata. Who's read it? Raise your hand. Just a few devotees. They're all pretty much. Yeah. If you look at the book, it's at least 1/3 to 1/2 of that book is the battlefield. You notice that? It's 18 days in such detail. And sometimes the question comes up that what was going on in that battlefield was. Sometimes they'll say it imaginary because human beings can't fight like that. You know, someone being completely covered with arrows. Now, if you shot me I had one uncle. Uncle Harry was his name. Harry Krishna. Uncle Harry. And he went hunting with a crossbow. Thought, let's go hunting with a crossbow. You know, deer season, right? And he shot himself in the foot with an arrow, so he gave up the idea of hunting with a crossbow, and I think he gave up the idea of hunting. We had some vice president who was shot in the rear end hunting, right? Remember that?
He shot somebody else in the face.
No, someone got shot in the rear end, so maybe that's another one. But the point is that just one arrow is enough to okay, but can you imagine your whole body is filled with arrows? And you just kind of shake it off and keep fighting. the explanation given is that so many of these personalities were actually demigods and demons from the higher planets that took birth on this planet to be part of the Lord's pastimes, and therefore they could engage in such unearthly warfare. And now we have this, what's going on, I'm describing, and there's much more to come, which, I mean, I read ahead, so it's pretty... and how's that possible? It's actually the devatas. That's how they fight. Everything is on a higher level, even their warfare. You know, we always hear about how the enjoyment in the heavenly planets is so much nicer. Thousands and thousands of times much more enjoyable than here. But that's everything that goes on there. So even their warfare is enough to make your hair stand on end, and it's practically unbelievable what actually is going on. He just says a soldier, a kshatriya, is someone who can tolerate pain. Is anyone here really good at tolerating pain? Because usually the quality of Brahmins, they can't take any pain. You know, it's like. But kshatriyas, they're very tolerant, just like they have this right down here in Coronado. You know what's in Coronado? What kind of training goes on in Coronado? Yeah, the Navy SEALs, right there. That's the elite. You have Navy SEALs, Rangers, you have different groups all over the world. In fact, I read an article once on these kind of groups. You know, one of the top-rated, what do they call them? Special ops is actually the French. Oui, oui, the French. Their group is considered one of the top in the world. That these are select soldiers that go in, and I think you're only allowed to be a Navy SEAL for what? 3 years, 5 years, and then you automatically have to get out. It is very, very intense, the training, and part of it is your ability to tolerate pain and all kinds of inconvenience isn't the word, pain, I guess, like that. The intensity of the training and so on. Sometimes people die. Every few years you hear about someone dying during the training, and there's all this stuff in the news and what happened, and it was just too much. They died. So that's a kshatriya. They can tolerate so much pain. So you see in this description, having your body filled with arrows and this and that and all these things, you just keep going. Shrugging off, you just keep going and keep fighting, right? Struck by thunderbolts and arrows and swords and all kinds of things, they just keep going. That's the demigods. So if you like, just like, well, you want everything much more intense, we'll go to heavenly planets. The happiness and maybe they call it the distress is much more intense, what you go through there. So a little something about these battlefields. Now Prabhupada's saying here, because there was an analogy drawn here about captains and traders in the ocean on a wrecked vessel, Prabhupada says, obviously indicates if they're talking about that, it must mean in the heavenly planets they have people who trade, who navigate waterways and oceans and so on, and do trade. And every once in a while, they could also, just like on this planet, get caught in a storm, and they're stuck. They get shipwrecked out at sea, and someone's going to come and rescue them, or not. So. And then Prabhupada ends it by explaining that from the Bhagavatam we understand that every planet is full of living entities, just as Earth is. There's no reason to accept that on other planetary systems there are no living beings. So Sarvagata, in the Sanskrit, Sarvagata means there's living entities everywhere. They're everywhere, living entities everywhere. We may not be able to perceive them. A very simple example Prabhupada gives you, just look out on the ocean. If you're just sitting there, you look out on the ocean, it just looks like a body of water. But inside that water are actually more varieties of living entities than on the land. Did you know that? Did you know that? And here's a question for you. Of all the varieties of climates, like jungle or desert or Arctic or, which one has the most varieties of life in it? What would you think? You would think the jungle, I think that would be intuitive. Yeah. It's actually the desert. Isn't that interesting? The desert. So, but they're all over the place. You don't see them. You go to the desert, you think, there's no one out here. Of course, you go out during the day, they're probably all hiding, and because they're smart. It's so sunny and hot, they just hide, and then like that. They come out at night and so on. But there's living entities everywhere. But this idea that for some reason or other, Earth is the only planet with life on it, intelligent life. I have a feeling, correct me if I'm wrong, but this may come out of Christianity in the Western world. Because in Christianity, this is the only planet. This is the only thing that matters is this one planet, and Christ appeared here, and it's the only way. And there's really nothing else out there, and it's all right here. You got to be saved by Christ, and this is it. And God, there's no mention in their scriptures of higher. They talk about going to heaven, but that must be something they're considering beyond this world. But all these planets and everything like that, they're just decoration. In fact, there's a famous line by Shakespeare: "The star-studded floor of heaven." That's the firmament of stars in the sky. He describes it's just decorations on a floor. But why would we think that you look up at all the stars at night and all the planets to think that there's really no one there? There's no one there. Why, Barbara said, why think like that? Why even think like that? Maybe it's, of course, you have what's called anthropocentric view of reality. You know what that is? Humans are the middle, the culmination of everything, but maybe they even have a thing where it's I guess you call it geocentric, that this planet's the center of everything and there's really nothing else. But why think that? What's causing us to think like that? Of course, now in modern science and astronomy and so on, I remember within the last year there was an article saying they feel now that they have discovered hundreds and hundreds of planets just like Earth. They used to say for so long that, there's no other planets out there with life like this. They say, we went to Mars, there's a little bit of water there. I went to this planet, there's dust, Life as we know it, they say like that, life as we know it. But actually now they're saying there is actually hundreds and hundreds of planets out there, maybe thousands, that it's just like Earth. So they're actually admitting that they're finding such things. And of course the question is,
That makes it even more wonderful that this is the only planet with human beings.
Right. And one thing is that, is it a waste of time, this idea of trying to find life on other planets and going to other planets? Is that a waste of time?
Yep.
Yes, that's the point. With modern machinery and this and that, it's a waste of time. Now, Prabhupada's book, Easy Journey to Other Planets, Prabhupada's explaining, if you want to go to other planets, yes, there's other planets, and they're all filled with life, and there's higher planets and lower planets. You explain to someone, just like on this earth, there are some very heavenly places. Ramapati, what's one heavenly place you know of? San Diego? That's why he keeps coming back. Oh. Okay. Sankarshan, what's a hellish place on this planet? Just suffering, beginning to end. He's such a devotee, he just sees it all sukhayate, like that, right? The whole material world is an opportunity for devotional service. Priya, what's a hellish place on this planet? How about if you're in the Ukraine right now?
I would say Gaza is the worst.
Gaza, yeah. Hell on earth. Yeah, right now. And there are places where it's just hell. It's just so much suffering, day and night, no end. So even on this planet, or like here in San Diego, a nice neighborhood maybe La Jolla, or Rancho Bernardo, or what's that called, Fairbanks? Like that. Really ritzy places. They don't have homes, they all have mansions, like that. And then you got very nasty places, like that, where people are just low income, if you want to call it, and not very nice homes, and they're struggling like anything. High crime rates and things like that. It's unsafe to be there. So we have experienced that there are higher and lower levels of happiness in life, even on this planet, in this city. And then why not think that? Why not try to understand, or is it possible that there's life out there? So So, and that's one of the first things when you come to Krishna consciousness, you start reading the books like the Bhagavatam and even the Bhagavad Gita. Right off the bat, they're talking about demigods and all kinds of planets and Surya and the sun and the moon and it's life everywhere. Life everywhere. That's Krishna. He's just filled everything with life. Vibhuti Bhinam. Everything is just filled with life. And our idea, well, it's just all void. There's nothing out there. It's just all gas, and just molecules and gas and floating around and so on. It's a very unfortunate view. But some of it may be psychological. That yes, this geocentric or anthropocentric view of reality that we are everything and nothing else really matters. And even the endeavor to go to another planet is because they're afraid we're going to trash this one and we better find some other place to live, right? That's what they're thinking. So there's space exploration. I mean, just think about what do they actually think they're going to do? I think Prabhupada even mentioned that they went to the moon. They went to the moon in 1969, and then they stopped. Why did they stop?
The whole point was the propaganda.
So what kind of endeavor is that? In fact, they knew before they even went there, had a good idea that it wasn't made of cheese. It's just dust and so on. And they spent millions and billions of dollars just going there and then coming, and then they just stopped. Is that a waste of human energy? I mean, even materially, all that money and resources could have been, probably says, childish, but they stopped. And then they think, oh, well, let's try another one. Let's go to Venus, let's go to Mars, let's go to,
I personally am very eager that Musk goes to Mars.
Can you use the microphone?
He said that he's very eager to go to Mars. You want them to go to Mars?
I'm eager that the person who is really into going to Mars, he goes to Mars and stays there.
Okay. Yes, okay. So, but, we're exposed to this, and then the question is, well, but I think especially now, more than 30, 40, 50 years ago, the idea that there's life out there on other planets and so on is more accepted. More and more they do research and so on. But even just logically, to think that there's nothing out there, it's just all empty like that. So I don't think it's that deep of it's called a leap of faith. Well, there's two sides to it. There's rational faith and irrational faith. The belief that all these planets are filled with varieties of living entities. Is that rational faith? Because you won't know until you go there, right? You won't know until you go there, and we can't go there. So is it rational faith that there could be life on all of these planets, varieties of life, or is it irrational? That's the question you have to ask people. They go, oh, you believe in this heavenly, all these descriptions in the Bible. Like we're reading right now, where did this battle take place? Yeah, in a higher realm. And we're hearing about, do you really believe this? How about that thing we read earlier about the mountains with wings? Have you ever seen a mountain flying with wings?
No, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist just so you see it.
Right. Who are we? Like that. So these amazing statements, they're actually not as amazing as we're all spirit, soul, and Krishna's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and there's a spiritual world. Those are even more amazing. But when Prabhupada was once asked about these different things that we read in the scripture that are a little hard for us to accept right now, Prabhupada said, just keep on with the process. In due course of time, it'll all be revealed to you. So just because it's difficult to understand something, just like if you first day of school, you open up the book and it's like, oh my goodness. Did anyone here have a hard time with algebra in school? I had a hard time with algebra. Geometry was tough. It was tough. And I never made it to, calculus and trigonometry, and I never made it that far. It's just all a bunch of squiggles on a page. I remember sitting here right next to Sariputta, looking over, and he had one of these, legal pads, and he was writing. And I looked over, and it's all squiggles. And he was just writing away, and I said, what's that all about? He said, you would never know. He She never be able to understand it. It's just because he had 2-3 degrees in advanced mathematics and this, and it's a whole language of just squiggles, and he's figuring something out. And the fact that I don't understand it, does that mean that he's just squiggling on the page? Like sometimes we doodle, that's what they call doodling. No. It's actually very, very high level sophisticated language of mathematics, but from our point of view, it just looks like squiggles. So we have to be a little humble. That's one thing. We have to be a little bit humble. And one thing is we don't, in our preaching to people, we don't have to accentuate these different things. I would not give a Sunday feast lecture on the topic of flying mountains. Okay? Don't do that. There's no reason to do that at this time. But the Vedic literatures open our eyes to a description of reality which is so vast and, of course, beyond our common understanding. Because what is our common understanding? If you think about it, what are the parameters of our common understanding? Basically, most people, what they understand, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Most people, that's all they understand. And everything kind of fits into those 4 categories, really. That's how we're trained. That's the average person. The average person is just eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And then you go on to topics like this or spiritual topics. It's just not in their realm of ability to understand. So we have to be very careful how we preach to people, and we don't want to create so many doubts. And, it says you meet people where they're at, and then that's where you preach. Like that. So you don't want to pull them too far on this side, that side. So one has to be very, very careful. But sometimes people just get exposed. I remember Mahabharata telling the story that his first Bhagavatam he got, he had walked outside of a record store in El Salvador. What's the capital of El Salvador? Something like that, right? Okay. He walked out, and it was Guru Prasad Maharaj as a brahmachari was standing there. And he had already been exposed to the devotees because he worked at the airport. And he's put devotees coming and going, different people. And Maharaj sold him volume 3 of the first canto. He said, oh, thank you, and this and that, and And he goes home and he opens it up. And he starts reading about Parikshit Maharaj, the personality of Kali, and this talking bull. It's like, it was a little too much, he said. I was just like, what did I just buy? It's like, and he just set it down on the shelf and went back to playing the record he bought. But it's too much too soon, But then, of course, the time with devotees and this and that. But, sometimes I remember when the Chaitanya Charitamrita came out, and we were just given cases of books to distribute, and you were distributing Anchalila. With Lord Chaitanya, his limbs of his body going into as like a tortoise and then coming out and this and that and these, Anchalila. It's like, and just, some housewife in a parking lot in North Boston, it's like, here you go, ma'am. And what's she going to do when she gets home with that? It's like, whoa. So, but the message is the message, and it's purifying, but we have to be a little careful we can't push people too far. Just because most people, we're all stuck in a very limited view of reality. It's very, very, very limited. So that's all being opened up and letting them know it's not unreasonable. In due course of time, when the senses and the mind and Krishna inspires in the heart, you see all. There's that saying, you haven't seen anything yet. You haven't seen it. You think the heavenly planets are amazing. How about the spiritual world? Just like I was hearing a reading just the other day. It was talking about Krishna playing with the cowherd boys, and Krishna's tired. The cowherd boys all want Krishna to lie down and put his head on their lap. So Krishna expands into as many forms as there are cowherd boys who want him on his lap. So you see the picture there, is that right there? It's just one cowherd boy, it's described, but actually Krishna expands himself so every single cowherd boy can have his head on his lap. No, I don't think so. It's just explaining, just like we see a picture of Krishna dancing with the gopis, but there's unlimited gopis and Krishna can dance with all of them. Krishna just expands himself. It's a inconceivable dimension, what's going on there, but that's what the spiritual world is, and the heavenly planets are quite amazing, and it just so. Why not?
I can solve one of the mysteries.
You have a microphone to do it. In fact, we'll stop here and open it up because I've more or less said everything I wanted to say. But when these things come up, we just talk to people about reasonable and unreasonable faith. And there's no, empiric evidence that it's false. So just give it some time. And another thing Prabhupada would bring up is, who do you accept as an authority? That's the big thing, you know. Prabhupada say, the scientists in the newspaper sometimes, Prabhupada say, you don't know. You just read the newspaper. That's your authority. You don't know. The scientists say something. They say. Prabhupada says, what do you say?
Well,
They say, you know, we did that, but what do you say?
But we've improved now. Now we have Google and TikTok.
You know, so it's a question of authority because we don't have any way to verify it. We don't. So most of what we're going on is just who we accept as an authority.
Yeah.
That's what's really happening. So that should be a little bit humbling. So we can open it up. Any questions or comments?
Well, I can definitely solve one mystery. What is the capital of El Salvador? San Salvador.
San Salvador, see. Okay. That's on the map. That's where Mahabharata is first Bhagavatam. There you go. Any other questions or comments? Yes. You have a microphone?
I was just wondering if somebody were to ask you, we were talking about different varieties of species of life, and they would say, like somebody said, well, it's well known that different species use different tools to communicate, or even simple tools. Why do the Vedas say that they're not intelligent, necessarily? Like why you say, only the humans are most,
Okay. Well, when the Vedas say they're not intelligent, every living entity has a level of intelligence to survive. Human beings sometimes aren't very intelligent either. Intelligence means, intelligence means to discern right from wrong, things like that. Discrimination. So to discriminate what human life is meant for, going back home back to Godhead, there's a soul in the body, there's a spiritual dimension. That's very, very good intelligence. And animals aren't endowed with that kind of intelligence. They're just not. They don't need it. That in other words, every species of life is existing for a reason. It's someone was just saying that I was listening to a lecture. 8,400,000 different is Chiru, I think. 8,400,000 different species of life because there's 8,400,000 varieties of desires. And you plug in where just like if you want to fly, you get a bird. If you want to swim in the water, you get a fish. That's what they exist for a particular reason. Krishna's put everything in motion. There's someone in control, in charge, and every single thing has a purpose. So human form of life is a form of life where, if you want to, you can actually cultivate the intelligence to discriminate between matter and spirit and the controller of both. The animals going tick, 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 looking for food, that's a different kind of intelligence. They're just discriminating where is food. That also, that's why Indra wasn't at all disturbed when Bali Maharaj said, you're actually pitied by saintly persons because they're so absorbed in sense gratification. He said, that's right. What can I tell you? There's so much sense gratification there. We're very, very pious, but we want to enjoy. So actually we are pitied by saintly persons. So we're using our intelligence how to enjoy. Why are they fighting the demons? Because they want to protect their residents, the heavenly planets. They don't want to give up their sense enjoyment. They don't want the demons to take over the heavens. They're fighting for sense gratification. That's what they're fighting for. So, did that answer your question? Anything else?
Well, I have a question that you probably can't answer.
I can't answer it.
Well, if you can't answer it, I can't. So why even ask?
How many times do we read in the books and hear, Prabhupada, if you listen to his lectures, there are 8,400,000 species of life, and then you give a breakdown, the plants, the animals, and you come to the human beings, of which there are 400,000. Although here I'm reading from Adi Lila, chapter 12, verse 73, purport. Although human society has different sections or subdivisions, all human beings belong to one species, and therefore we accept that they all have the ability to understand the concept like that. And that's the only place it would be dead. So,
Are you saying all the human beings on the planet right now are in one of the 400,000, or all 400,000 are essentially the same species?
well, they have different subdivision sections, yeah, but all human beings belong to one species. And it's repeated again in the Bhagavatam. I can find another reference for that.
Meaning all 400,000 are in the same category of human beings.
If you're a human being, you belong to the species of human beings.
Right, that's all he's
But that-
saying. The
but that-
demigods are human-like. My understanding is human-like, 400,000 human-like species, which includes the devatas, human beings, that whole spectrum. It's like I've heard it said there's actually 100 levels of devatas, 100 different levels of devatas. And Agni being the lowest, that's why he's close to us in the Agnihotra. He carries our messages upward. So right there's 100 different levels of devatas.
Yeah.
So, and even the gorillas and monkeys are human-like, vanaras and so on. So they're human-like. But human beings as we know them, it's like one big happy family all over the world, right? One big happy family.
Anyway,
Yeah.
all I'm saying is that, because I get letters, I get emails every day. Can you explain this? Can you explain this in the books, And sometimes I get puzzles like this, and I can't explain it.
And I've heard different...
The puzzle is that it says all human beings belong to one species, and you'll find 100 places in the books where it says there's 400,000 species of human life. 8
Right.
million, and then we
Right.
break up the 8 million into plant life, and so it seems to be it's a
And it's
puzzle.
also been said many times that the Vedic understanding of species is different than our modern anthropologists and so on. This is a species, that's
Yeah,
a species.
yeah,
So not referring, it actually refers to something else, more of consciousness even than just physical forms. I've heard that a few times. So, no. Okay, so should we end here?
But do you think that's a puzzle? I don't see how that's a
No, I don't think it puzzles at all.
He's just using the term species to refer to a category.
Yeah.
How does that be a puzzle?
Yeah, well,
Just like all 100,000 birds are still birds.
yes,
So,
Yeah.
So you can say birds is one species, or you can say there are 100,000.
yeah, there's human beings, there's human-like, so I understand what you're saying. When I heard, I just, just human beings, but there are varieties of human-like, from the devatas all the way down to the residents of the hellish planets and, sub kind of human, like Bigfoot and things like that. They're all human-ish, like that. So we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.